righty. Welcome back to the Crazy Juicy Love podcast. I have my special guest again, Carlee Myers. So tell us, she is the creator of the Stressless company. So tell us about your company, what you do, and all that so we can get into it.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. I love having you. Especially we need people like you at this time, like really talk about how to reduce stress and anxiety. Like, so you just bring so much value. So when I thought about creating this podcast series, making quarantine juicy, just like you were the first people that popped up into my mind, because I know I've dealt with my own stress and anxiety around this whole thing. So thank you for being on the show again.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. So yes, I'm Carlee Myers. I am the founder of the Stressless company. And what I do is I help folks who are overworked, overwhelmed, on the verge of burnout, or somewhere in the gray area, relieve stress so that we can find one, more joy, and two, more time for the things that are most important to us, whether that's our family, whether that's taking our careers to the next level, whatever. It could be your dog, whatever that thing is to you, letting you have more time or creating more time for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so, how are you doing with what's going on? How are you with the quarantine, with the virus? How's your family? How are you with this whole epidemic, this pandemic?
You know what? I am doing oddly well. And I say that because, I've been finding myself in these social social or virtual, situations recently where, there are folks who are, the expectation is almost doom and gloom. The expectation is how are you? Oh, I feel cooped up and I'm having a hard time. And there are days where I'm like, I'm definitely feeling that. But there are other days where I'm like, I'm doing hella good. I'm doing so good. And it feels a little awkward to say that. And so I'm catching myself being aware of that. But overall, today I'm feeling good. It's been rainy and gloomy and the sun is shining on me right now. So that is...
Yes, bringing the sunshine to you. I for me too, when it first hit, I remember just seeing jobs and gigs just like being canceled left and right. And I literally started having a panic attack. I was just like, what is happening? How I'm going to pay rent? How I'm going to pay bills? How I'm going to do this? I was so stressed that I thought I was having a heart attack, that I literally was having trouble putting on my clothes. And I ended up walking to the emergency room, which is now in Queens, is the biggest, not the biggest hospital, but like infection in Queens, in the hospital near me. And just alone being in the emergency room, seeing people with masks, and then there's telling people don't touch stuff. It was just so stressed. It enhanced my stress. And then after talking to the nurse, she was like, well, it sounds like it's all mental, and you just need to go outside and breathe, or we can send you to a psychologist. And I was like, and we can give you some medication. I was like, oh, let me just go outside and just take some deep breaths. And literally, I just started to calm down. And I was just like, wow, I need to learn how to manage my anxiety and everything that's going on around me.
Yes. I feel like, we're talking about right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? Where there's physical illness going around, but we're not talking about what I hope isn't the case, but may be the case, which is the second pandemic, which is the pandemic of mental health.
Oh yeah. I was just had another mindset guy on the other day, and he even brought up how this pandemic has really brought out people's issues, and those issues have already been there. We're not as distracted anymore, or by work and going on. Our issues are on display right now.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So, guys, Carlee came up with some tips to help anyone who's out there who's dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety, dealing with fear. And I'm so happy that she's providing these tools and tips to help you just bring a little sunshine inside.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's interesting. And I think what's interesting is I'm feeling called in the moment to share this. And I didn't give you the heads up, Jimmy, so I hope what I'm about to share isn't problematic. But I'm feeling really called to, I shared some of the ideas of what I wanted to give your community ahead of time, but I didn't tell you exactly what my journey's been over the last month and a half.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And over the last month and a half, outside of the some days are crappy and some days are good, I found out at the beginning of March that I had COVID.
Oh, wow.
And so honestly, this is actually my first public announcement of that. I've shared, with the people that needed to know. But so as you can imagine, March was stressful AF.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Stressful
I mean,
AF.
how did you find out? Did you just know? Did you have symptoms? Did you call your doctor? Did you get tested? Like, how did you know?
Yeah. So for me, I was feeling incredibly exhausted. 14 hours a day I was sleeping, waking up, going to sleep more. I was so exhausted. I had your typical cold symptoms. And I realized after the fact that I did a lot of public speaking, and I had just been to the local epicenter in the Philadelphia area, which was actually in the suburbs, and I had just spoken at 3 events in the epicenter a few days earlier. And I was like, oh crap. Oh crap. And part of my journey was calling my doctor, and it being so new. It was the beginning of March in Philadelphia. We had almost 0 cases, and calling my doctor and them telling me that they weren't seeing patients. They weren't seeing patients. And I was like, oh, what do you mean you're not? I think I might have COVID. And they were like, no, you need to go to an emergency room. Hanging up the phone, seeing on the TV that the local government says, do not just go to the emergency room. Right? And then, finally feeling so sick, 2 days going by, and calling my doctor back and saying, look, they're telling us not to do that. What should I do? They said, go to the emergency testing site. Well, the emergency testing site says, what? You're under a certain age. You're not a nurse. You're not a doctor. Stay home. And unless you have a fever. And I didn't have a thermometer. And my doctor's like, I finally get a hold of my doctor again. I'm like, I don't have a thermometer. These places aren't going to let me see them unless I have a temperature. Finally, I end up getting the temperature. I end up going to a public testing site, get tested. 2 days later, I found out I tested positive for it. Wow. A week later, I was in the hospital for chest pain, in and out. Thank goodness. Thank freaking goodness. But, all of this, thank goodness, for me, I felt so, I don't know if blessed is the right word, blessed, gracious, in all that I thank goodness I had the tools in my tool belt to go through all of this. So one of the things that I teach as a stress management coach is this thing called creative stress reduction. And, creative stress reduction is any activity that gets us out of fight or flight mode and into a state of play or flow, right? And this can be anything. This can be, putting together a puzzle. This can be playing with your dog. This can be, whatever it is. For me, in the moment when I was in the ambulance heading to the hospital, it was joking around with the guy in the back of the ambulance. He's calling himself an Oompa Loompa. I'm acting like I'm telling him he looks like the guy from Batman, and kept saying, where is she?
Right.
And for me, that was anything that got me out of fight, flight, or freeze. I was terrified and stressed and into a state of play. And what happened is I was able to show up. I was able to be present. I was able to answer the questions that I needed to answer. And I was able to take care of myself, which is probably one of the most important things that we need to be doing right now. Yeah. If it wasn't for that goofy Batman joke and telling the ambulance guy I felt like I was in a hayride, making the left, right.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a bad hayride. There's Batman to my left and it's bouncing and all this. If it wasn't for that ability to get into a state of play, I probably would have been in the fetal position, terrified. I'm about to go to the hospital. I'm about to go to a place where, there's so much stress. What if I'm a burden? What if this? What if that? All the thoughts could go a million miles an hour. And so creative stress reduction in the moment was the thing that, thank goodness, I had in my tool belt, and it saved me. So here's the thing though, if that's years of practice. That's me being able to say, the fight or flight freeze mode has been triggered, and I know I need to get to that place. I know I need to get to the creative stress reduction place. If we're at home and we're in quarantine, or maybe we're feeling like a hypochondriac, right?
Right.
We're getting into that state of overwhelm or stress, and we don't know what to do about it. The first thing that I would say is to find the creative stress reduction activities that work for you. So start by making a list of, at least 100 items. And I mean at least 100 items that you love.
That's so interesting. As you talk about this, like about one, I felt like I might have had it COVID too, because I remember before all this happened, when I started that moment, I remember sleeping a lot. Like, I didn't have chest pains, thank goodness. But I remember they say one of the symptoms, like once it's over, you lose sense of taste and smell. I remember like one day I was like, I cooked something, I was like, I couldn't taste flavor at all. Like, it was like, eventually came back over like maybe a week or two, but nothing tasted like nothing. I barely ate because I was like, well, what's the point? But anyway, but it's really interesting that you like write 100 things to do, because that somehow doing that, I somehow started doing that, and that kept leading to more things and more things, and then enjoying all these creative things that and it really helps me manage my stress and my anxiety, because like what you just said earlier, now I'm in this flow and of joy, and I was just like, because I really love what I'm doing, so that's so great that that's one of the things that people could do.
Yeah, and if we think about stress and anxiety as energy, if we can do something, take that energy from a place of nervousness or a place of fear, and we apply that to a place of creativity or to a place of play, the energy just gets shifted. It can either go in a state of play and joy and contentment, or it can grow in a place of fear. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'd rather plant my seed in that place of play, even if it's something small. I say that all the time, like, even if it's like you're forcing like the seeds in your hand and you're like forcing your arm into the play category,
right?
I think that's going to be the thing. And I say, with this list, it can be anything. Like, and I want to say that, I really want to emphasize that, because not all of us are going to be in the place where we can just instantly go to joke mode.
Right.
But, it can be, okay, I need to go on a walk. I need to, sign on to virtual yoga. I need to play with my cat more. I need to, I need to start a podcast series where we're talking about all of this.
Yeah.
And you'll find that these things just shift that energy.
Yeah, it is. Oh, thank you for that. That's a really good one. So what's the second one?
So once you have that list of 100 items, what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself a few questions. And this is to make sure that we're not engaging in activities that are going to be self-sabotaging, that might be bad for our health, bad for other people. So the first question that you're going to ask is, could this potentially put myself or others in harm's way? So let's say, for instance, on your list is game night with the friends, or with your crew, with your people, and it's in person. That's the way it is in your mind. Well, right now, based on everything that's going on, that might have to get crossed off. At least the in-person gathering would have to get crossed off your list, because it could put yourself or your friends in harm's way, right? And their families, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to cross that out. Could I get sick, or could someone else accidentally get sick? You might be able to shift your list for this, but at the end of the day, would this put me or someone in my life in harm's way? If the answer is yes, you're going to cross it out. The second question that you're going to ask is, based on my past experiences, based on my trauma, based on all of that, will this item trigger me? So a great example of this is when I was going through, I suffered from PTSD. That's a whole nother story. We'll get into it another day. One of my things I kept hearing is, Carlee, just try yoga. Just do yoga. Yoga's going to be like, it's going to make you feel so much better. And I went to a yoga class, and they did this thing. It's not the yoga, this specific exercise that they did. It's called box breathing, where when you inhale for a certain count, you hold for a certain count, exhale for a certain count, hold for a certain count. And as a result of my PTSD from when I was a kid, I had drowning nightmares. So as you can imagine, going into yoga class, right? Like where you inhale and you hold. What happened when I held? right? Trigger. And so I had to cross that off my list. It might be something that's great for my body, great for my muscles, great for, all of that in another context, but for this, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for my creative stress reduction. The third question that you're going to ask yourself is, does this item fit into my current resources? So does it fit into my financial resources, my time resources, my social resources? So if you're...
So that's a good one, because it's so easy to just spend money when you don't have right now, because it's like, well, I got nothing else to do. Because like one of my things, I picked up this, I never play video games. I play this little video game and like, oh look, 99 cents to do this and do that. And I'm just like, okay, you need to calm down. You can't be spending money like this. Like, it's fun and it's cute and it's actually helping me like calm myself, and it's keeping me from it's just like something different that I enjoy, but I give myself a time limit, and I'm like, okay, I have 10 minutes for this and that, and that's it,
Yeah. And I think that like the online, I keep seeing posts on social that's like the online retailers are targeting me. They're like, they're coming after me for the online shopping,
They are.
But, everybody's having to shift to this online model. But at the end of the day, we have to be really clear on like, is this going to be healthy for me? Like, does it fit into my financial resources, or when all this is over, I'm going to regret all the lipstick I bought, or, whatever that item is.
Yeah.
And going into like, I've had a lot of conversations with parents recently. They, writing down items that, they're really excited about in terms of creative stress reduction, but they're doing homeschooling and they're trying to work, run their business or work a full-time job while they're trying to take care of the kids, and everybody's kind of together. And so in this situation, we have to be really honest with ourselves about what our time resources are and our social resources. There's not necessarily somebody to watch the kids unless we have a partner. Right. So being really clear about that.
And I have a friend of mine who, she's married, has a kid, and I remember we were texting, she goes, this is very stressful. I have a 5-year-old, my husband's home, he's working, like we're trying to manage the kids and work. She said, for some reason, my job is giving us more work to do. She's like, I feel like I'm getting depressed and I don't know how she's saying that she needed to learn how to manage her stress, and she's going to quit her job, but because she can't believe how much she's spending more hours at work now that she's home. And she's like, what is this? So, it's really, these questions and these exercises are really great for somebody like that who is dealing with like managing a child. I can't even imagine like managing 1 to 3 small children during this particular time.
100%. So being realistic about what that creative stress reduction activity can be for you, if you are short on time, if you are short on those social resources, somebody else to watch those kids for you, because we might go from a 30-minute activity of creative stress reduction to 60 seconds. What can I do for 60 seconds, right? And then the last question that I would have you ask yourself going through this list is to ask yourself, if I did this item every single time I was stressed out, would it be healthy? So for instance, for me, I love cookie dough, like legit love it. It's delicious. But if I ate cookie dough every single time I was stressed out, it wouldn't be healthy. I'd end up probably in the hospital with food poisoning from all the raw eggs, right? And probably about 20 pounds. Right? And so, same thing goes with the wine. Same thing goes with, the stress, the food, right? There's a reason why the liquor stores aren't closing right now. That's just the honest truth. And 2, why you go into the junk food aisles in the stores and they're almost all sold out. I went into the baking aisle yesterday at the grocery store. I don't think there was a single Betty Crocker box mix, anything.
Ice cream, cookies. Yep. I mean, all gone.
All gone. Right? It's because people have found a creative stress reduction activity, but they haven't found one that's healthy. Right? So it makes them feel a sense of play or a sense of contentment, or it makes them feel the way they want, at least in the moment. But it's not the thing that's going to help them long term, because it creates a negative side effect. It creates that guilt or that shame later, or that sugar hangover, or whatever it is. And so we want to be really clear, is this item healthy? Would it be healthy every single time I did it? If it wouldn't, then we want to cross it out. And what we have left after asking those questions and crossing out all of those is the healthy coping mechanisms, the healthy creative stress reduction activities that we can do, that are accessible, that are available to us right now based on our current circumstances. And that is the thing that gets us from fear, fight, flight, or freeze to a state of contentment where we're actually able to make, we're able to think clearer, make better decisions, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's awesome. And says, oh, that's right. That was the last one. It's like circle the item. So yeah, I mean, I hear you on all those things, and like, especially writing these things down in a little notebook. I literally carry that notebook from my room to the living room because I've tapped into that creativity. It just constantly flowing, and it just like, and I enjoy, and what I'm doing is being creative too, and like working on my website, working on like content, working on things. Like, it just brings me joy. Especially, I have a friend of mine who right now, his best friend is dying, like literally on a ventilator from this coronavirus. And, I talked to him this morning. He's super stressed, and I'm sure he'll find value in what you have to say. And he just, started crying. And I was like, also too, like with loss, like give yourself permission to grieve, to cry, don't hold it in. Like just let it happen. Crying is a part of releasing or letting go. And it's not letting go of the person's still with you, but letting go of the attachment that you have with that person.
Yeah, I would say that's 100%. Like when I had to pick up the phone, my doctor wasn't available. I had to call 911. Oh boy, I let the tears roll. I let them go. Right?
I'm sure.
100%. I was like, I am about to be picked up by a freaking, okay, here we go. Right? But then, so there's something else I'd like to share, Jimmy, if we have just another minute.
Sure, we do.
Great. So, one of the other things that I want to note is that I want to be sure that we're not skipping over like our basic needs here. Mm-hmm. So right now, if we think of Maslow's like hierarchy of human needs, like, right, it starts with your basic needs, then it goes into your sense of safety, your sense of health, goes into your social relationships, all of that. We've a lot of us have gotten to the top, which is that epiphany, that like higher self, what is your purpose, what are you doing? And this whole pandemic has really knocked down that pyramid and put us back at step one. Food, shelter, all of that. I mean, because some of us have lost our jobs, we're back at how am I going to pay
like the basic needs, like got us back down to like caveman basic needs.
And so like I want to be clear that I'm not skipping over those, and in fact we need to focus on those, right? Like, so if we've lost a job, focus on getting that unemployment, focus on trying to find a new job, but also it's going to be so much easier if we allow ourselves, first of all, when we are in fight or flight mode, we have a tendency to make bad decisions. Let's be real. So it's going to be so much easier and so much more light, less of a burden if we implement that creative stress reduction while we are rebuilding.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And so I have one question that I'm going to ask everyone. I'm going to ask you, what are you learning, or what have you learned about yourself during this whole pandemic? About love or life or yourself?
I've learned, I think many of us have learned the same lesson. I've heard it time and time again. Back to the basics, back to what's most important.
Yeah.
What's most important to me, my family, my health, me, number one, I'm most important for me.
Yeah.
And number two, my family, and number three, my purpose. And it really helped knock down all that random crap that I was doing before. Not important.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say purpose, because I really, as a coach, I'm really starting to look at my purpose. And I'm looking at, how my friends, whoever on Facebook, and I'm just like, I just don't want to be another person just putting posting or reposting about the news, or which is, some of that stuff is great, but like causes anxiety. I said, well, what am I, who has this talent, this skill, how am I going to make a contribution right now in this moment. And that is why this podcast series is happening, you know.
I love it. Yeah. And that's what's going to make it's going to be so much more powerful because it's the thing that stands out amongst all of the other heavy stuff.
Yeah. And so finally, tell us where we can find you online.
Oh my goodness. So first of all, what I'd love to do is for anyone who's struggling, who feels like they could use a little bit extra support, I'm happy to offer the first 10 listeners a complimentary Stressless clarity session. So this is a 30-minute phone call to help you get to the root of your stress and create an action plan to step out of it and see how I can support you. And then, you know, if you're looking for some more good news, some more good content that's going to, outweigh all the other crap that's happening right now, you can follow me on Instagram at The Stressless Co. And you can find us on our website at stresslessco.com.
And did they go to your website to schedule that appointment as well?
That's right. So, yes, stresslessco.com/apply.
Okay, fantastic. So guys, please take advantage of my girl here, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with somebody, with your friends who are in need of some tools and tips to help them stress less. Thank you.